Hi, and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast for this Thursday morning, or afternoon or evening, whatever time you're tuning into this. Tonight, I'm delighted to be joined by another guest, Orlando Zucchetto. So he's in LLP, and he's really I'm really looking forward to this interview. I really appreciate coming on tonight, Orlando. Thanks very much.
Oh, Mark, you're very welcome, mate. It's good to be here, mate.
Yeah. So I suppose we'll start it off, get a bit of background where your journey really began with NLP.
Well, absolutely. Look, I first came across these letters NLP. I actually heard it in the long form in a sales role many moons ago in another lifetime back in New Zealand. Obviously, I'm in the UK now, but about 1996, 97, I was doing some part-time work in car sales. Full-time, I was in executive sales, but I was always looking for something different to do. And one of the guys that I worked for was just absolutely a massive cut above everybody else. And the most frustrating thing I found with Graham is when he worked with clients, he would go in these huge big circles in language, and I just couldn't follow where he was going. And he'd take people from very upset to thanking him in a 10-minute space of time. And I said to him one day, "What are you doing?" And he just laughed and walked away. I mean, he was reading me like a book. He knew me in some respects better than I knew myself. Because, of course, with doing that, I just had to know what it was. About 6 weeks later, he handed me a small slip of paper. And I said, "What's this?" And he just walked away again. And I read it. And it said, Introduction to Neuro-Linguistic Programming for Business Communication.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what that meant.
Yeah.
But I guess it was that thing. So I literally, I had to go to back in those days, we didn't have cell phones. I had to go and find a wall phone, and I rang up and booked into it straight away. And on that first introduction, I was absolutely hooked. Now that course originally was for business communications, and I was in executive sales at the time. So being a young man, I looked at it from the perspective, if there's something that I can do to either maintain my income or increase it and work less, that gave me a lot more time for important things that men in the early 20s are interested in. So it might not have been the smartest list of reasons to go ahead, but it certainly had me hooked, and that was it. It began a journey that so far it's over 20 years, and loving it, absolutely loving it.
Great. That's brilliant. That's a great story. I love the part about the looking for the phone, because I remember them days myself looking for the pay phones. Yeah, great. And in your opinion, what was your favorite part of NLP? What kind of modality would you say was your favorite, or the most how could you say, the most effective in your opinion?
Well, possibly, in my opinion, for the most effective, it also answers the same question: what do I enjoy the most? Mm-hmm. There are a lot of different components to what neuro-linguistic programming are. There's lots of different strategies and methodologies within. To pick one favorite might be a bit difficult, but for me, definitely what we call submodalities, which are the distinctions within the representation systems. That it's the 5 senses of the body, how we store information, how we bring it in, and then how we communicate it to other people. But mixing those submodalities and the concept of time, and how we think of time, and how we converse in time, and the language of time, and the linguistics of everything. As I'm sure you've come to realize in the short time we've known each other, I'm never short of conversation. I've always enjoyed speaking and communicating. And when I found this powerful tool for how I could run my own brain and more effectively communicate, well, I was very pleased to have come across it, to say the least.
Great, no, great. It really is great, isn't it? It's brilliant. And and I absolutely love what you do on a Thursday as well, Orlando. You know, the Zoom community you brought about to kind of help practitioners. Do you want to tell the listeners a bit about that, please?
Well, absolutely. Look, it came about as just one of those little ideas, really. Here in the UK, it was the 23rd of March, 2020. They announced that things were locking down for 4 weeks. And, I think most people understood even back then that there was no way a country was going to close down for 4 weeks only. Yeah. Well, a couple of weeks into it, I started going a little stir crazy because I really enjoy being around people. Yeah. And the idea was really born in an evening out of jest, where I said to my partner, well, for her mental health perspective, I would start a group to support other practitioners. And the real reason was there was a lot of talk that practitioners, therapists, counselors were going to be heavily drawn upon with the lockdown coming ahead. And I wanted to start something, just an open forum for those practitioners and therapists, so that many of them that work out on their own would have somewhere to be part of a community and gain any support if they needed it themselves. Just not so much from a training and learning perspective, but just from a friendly community of like-minded individuals that could support one another. And after about 2-3 months, I guess the lockdown just carried on. I started getting requests from people who were not specifically in industry, but they'd had a bit of training in NLP or hypnosis, etc. So the name got expanded to the Open NLP and Hypnosis Meetup. It's going to get shortened again very soon, but the title was exactly what it was intended for. It was an open meetup around the topics of NLP and hypnosis. And many people still come along now. We're 68 weeks into it now. That which started to support practitioners and therapists, and then it just grew to anyone that had a real interest in the topic. And the truth is, Mark, I thoroughly enjoy it. It's a great group of people, and it's constantly changing and growing. And as long as people are enjoying it, I've committed to carry on running it, because it's a lot of fun, and I know that some of the participants are getting some huge value out of it. So, we've got people that have changed areas of their health, of weight loss. They've, as practitioners, they've picked up skills, or they've begun using skills that they've actually got. They've learnt them, they've practiced them once or twice, and that confidence level might not quite be there for putting them into practice alongside the other work they do. And it's a really easy place they can come along, refresh the brain, and then crack on. And some people, we have some people coming along now that they've only ever heard of the letters NLP, and they actually want to know what it is. And so my introduction is, well, come along and experience what we're doing rather than have a description. It's not an academic pursuit. It is an all in the doing.
No, well done to you. It's really, really good. As I say, I've only joined in the last month or so, but I found it really, really good. There was one particular part of it I thought was brilliant, because I've got a friend that suffers a bit with sleep, and the thing you told people to do was really, really good, where you tense yourself up and relax, and tense yourself up and relax. Would you mind just explaining that again? Because I just think that's really priceless information.
Well, the theory of that, I can't tell you who originated it, but where I learned it from was Dr. Edie Perry. Okay. She's an NLP trainer based over in Boca Raton in Florida. And her and her husband, her late husband, I should say, Ron Perry, they put together what was originally the Perry method, and then it became Patterns of Physical Transformation. Both Ron and Edie were chiropractors, and multiple modality learners with respect to body work, whether it be chiropractic, osteopathy, physiotherapy, and then delving into Eastern medicine as well. Ron was also a clinical hypnotherapist before he became a chiropractor. And then the two of them met Dr. Richard Bandler and began developing their work even further. And Ron was fascinated in the work of Moshe Feldenkrais, who another name for people to look up, he trained with personally. And from the work with Moshe, Ron and Edie was obviously explained it to me, was Patterns of Physical Transformation is very much hypnosis for the body, physiological change through almost unconscious understanding in the body. And when we look at the body or the mind, with all of the processes that we go through are processes. They're programs, processes, strategies, whatever you want to call them. There is step by step to them, but often they happen very quickly, and therefore the process is lost, or the steps are lost. And in their work, they found that to relax, it has to relax from somewhere. So whatever that point of tension is, it can then relax from that. Now, even if you're very relaxed and become even more relaxed, that's a point of one point down to another point, if you like, for a direction. Well, what happens is when you bring all of your awareness to a particular body part and you tense that muscle, you take it to an extreme of tension. And then when you let it go, it can experience the movement that is the direction, the neurological change to a relaxation point. And if you practice that consciously, the unconscious part of the mind, and when I say conscious and unconscious, I'll just clarify, we have one mind as far as I'm aware. And when I talk about the conscious or the unconscious, I'm talking about processes, not parts. It's not, I'm not aware of having two minds running around wherever. But for me, it's very easy to think of it as processes. I do things as a conscious process until they become automatic and I do them unconsciously. Well, sometimes the unconscious processes that we get into do not serve us as well as they could. So we bring them into our conscious awareness and practice them by, for example, if you want to relax your body, tense parts of the body and then intentionally relax. And that can be as simple as creating tension and then just letting it go. Now that's moving into a relaxed position and we're training our brain, that is our brain, our spinal cord, our entire neurology, that this is what we want to create as an ongoing fashion. And I teach people very often, especially in the realms moving into insomnia, make sure that, look at your diet, look at the medical side of it as well. This is not about one thing as opposed to the other. It's everything working together in a common direction. But if medically things are checking out and everything's fine, then to start looking at, are you getting enough exercise during the day to need to relax? And if so, then you can either tense the whole body or start with the hand and the arm, two arms, two legs, then the whole body, to practice tensing and then letting it go. And then tense it and then let it go. And by practicing that, you're giving your body a rhythm. This is what I want you to do. This is the direction I want my body to go, deeper and deeper into relaxation. And as you know, Mark, I love the value of adding language to that as well, and talking to yourself. It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thanks a million for sharing that with everybody, with the listeners. That's really, really good. Thanks very much, And I'm very interested as well, Orlando, that you trained with Richard Bandler. Is that right? Yeah. That must have been a great experience.
It was and it is. In the early days, I trained with what was available in New Zealand, which I met some great people and learnt some cool, awesome skills. And after that training in '97, I was using it in sales and in my own small businesses that I owned in New Zealand, and constantly reading about hypnosis, hypnotic language, and two names kept coming up, and they were Richard Bandler and a lot of names, Richard Bandler and John Grinder, the two co-creators of NLP. And about early 2016, I was looking at making some changes business-wise and enhancing the coaching work I was doing and selling another company that I had, or business that I had. And I was actually having a conversation with my best mate in the world, Dave. And he said to me, if there was anything that you wanted to get, is there anything you've never finished? And straight into my mind came, I've always wanted to get as close to the source of NLP as I could get. Like the inventors, I didn't even know if these people were still alive anymore. I just didn't know. So what we had in 2015, 2016 didn't exist in 1997, and that's called YouTube. It didn't even exist in 1997. So yeah, like I said, the phones were on the wall and the internet was dial-up. It was a different world. Some listeners may not understand what I'm talking about, but yeah, check up on history. But I got on YouTube and I typed in John Grinder and I watched a few videos, and I typed in Richard Bandler and I watched a few videos, and I just went, hang on, there's something missing here. There's a skill level here that far exceeds what I've experienced, and I want that. I want to know what that is. What's the missing chunk? So I did a bit of investigation, and within hours, I'd contacted Kathleen Lavelle at Pure NLP over in Florida, and I'd booked in to go into a practitioner training with Richard in 2016. So sure enough, a few months later, the time came along. I got on the Big Bird and flew to America, and I met Richard. And within 30 minutes, I was absolutely mind blown. Richard personifies that which he teaches. I mean, he came up with the name neuro-linguistic programming, but more importantly, for me, Richard's incredibly pragmatic. It's not so much whether it's academic or not, although there's a lot of strength there now, and there's a lot of learning and understanding and books that have come out. But from the very moment he steps on stage to begin a training, I have never seen or experienced anyone that comes close to being able to do what he does. He is absolutely phenomenal. Now, this shouldn't come as any great surprise. A few years before I was born, Richard Bandler came up with the term NLP, and he and John Grinder had already been practicing hypnosis and Gestalt therapy and beginning to move through different modalities and learning with Gregory Bates and the other input they had there. And then the other people at the beginning of NLP, the likes of Robert Dilts and et cetera, they were living and breathing this stuff. When they decided to get into hypnosis, Richard literally went and bought every book that he could find, read all of them. He was a voracious reader. And then he literally just went person after person after person, practicing on as many people as he could get his hands on. So 45 years later, it shouldn't be a great shock that he's brilliant at what he does. But that's not because he just does a lot of it. It's continuous improvement. He was always looking for another edge, another avenue, something else to add into it. And within 30, 45 minutes of day one, that was absolutely obvious to me. I am here now. I literally went to see if there was a difference between what I'd learned and what he taught. And an hour into a seminar, I decided I was going to sit there, and I was going to spend that 8 days and nights and everything in between, absorbing, learning, and practicing every ounce of skill that I could squeeze out of that course. And it literally took my skill level to a whole new level. And very quickly, I made plans to exit out of my other business and enhance what I was doing, working with people one-on-one and in groups. It just absolutely mind-blowing for me. And that kick-started a journey. I started traveling back to Florida. I was traveling there for 10 or 12 weeks at a time. I don't know, it must have been a bit shorter than that. About 8 weeks a year I was in Florida. I was going there often enough that I turned up at the hotel and they gave me 9 nights free. I couldn't believe it.
Great.
But I literally booked on every course that I could do with Richard, from persuasion engineering, design, human engineering, charisma enhancement, master practitioner, trainers training. I was absolutely obsessed with learning everything I possibly could. And in the time in between those courses, practicing, reading, rewatching videos, just everything that was said on stage. If you do this, you'll get better. If they said do it 10 times, I did it 50 to 100 times. They said write this out 100 times, I wrote out a minimum 100 times. Like I didn't want to be average. I wanted to excel and actually put into practice what was being taught. NLP is the study of excellence. Well, the purpose of studying the excellence is so that you can become excellent or teach others how to become excellent. And so I was determined to put it to the test, and pretty happy with the results so far.
Great.
And I continue to learn from Richard and several of his master trainers, and I will continue to do so as long as the opportunity presents itself. I don't think no one's ever going to get the best and unsurmountable in this field, like any field. And to me, it's just a relentless pursuit, which is absolute fun.
That's it. That sounds like a great journey, Orlando. That sounds like a really, really good journey. And it probably gonna. That's really. Thanks very much for sharing that with the listeners. Thanks. And I suppose I'll ask you as well. Like for yourself as well, how can people contact you, and what exactly do you offer to people? Like, if I could kind of share any of your stuff, the way of contacting you, your practice.
Well, absolutely.
to help you
I'm
along?
pretty easy to, well, I'm medium easy to find at the moment.
Yeah.
You can get me on email, which I can share with you. You can put it on the podcast in Orlando, nlpfusion.com. Yeah, I can be found. Look, my name's pretty. My name was on screen. I don't know where it is now, but
Yeah.
Orlando Zucchetto. It's very easy to find on Facebook. There's only 2 in the world I'm aware of, and if it doesn't look like me, it's not me. It's the other
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, there's a new website coming out soon with a new company that we're putting together. So that's all in process, but certainly Instagram, social media, Instagram, Facebook, or email, absolutely welcome to. Look, the bulk of the work I do now, and we're starting to segue from online back into the real world with real people.
Yeah.
But
thank God.
I mean, the 2 main streams of work I do is coaching, and that is coaching with NLP practitioners, therapists, hypnotherapists that want to either enhance their skills or get themselves out practicing or add new skills to their bow. And I also do private coaching for professional and private individuals that want to get from here to there, whatever that means to them. So yeah, that's a big chunk of my work and has been, especially during the lockdown. The other side of my work is the training, and that is literally teaching NLP and hypnosis, hypnotic language, and putting that together in online training and live training and with businesses. And yeah, that's for me, that's the really fun part of my job, is getting out in front of groups of people. But I hold a very strong belief that if you're going to be teaching other people these skills, be practicing them and be capable of them. I don't believe in teaching something I'm not doing. So I'll always continue to have a percentage of private clients that I'm working with using the skills that I'm teaching to other people so that they can use them.
Yeah. No, that's great, because when your new website comes up, maybe share it with me. I can put it on the podcast and in the show notes for you as well.
Absolutely, that'll be it's probably about 3 weeks away. But if Tom, my web designer, is watching this, I know he's waiting on me for content, so but it'll get done.
Yeah,
it will get done.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate coming on tonight, Orlando. It's great. And I suppose, would you mind just to give the listeners some kind of takeaway from this? If you could kind of maybe give one of your modalities that you share on the I don't want to put you on the spot or anything like that. Sorry, that you share on a Thursday, maybe just something that it can take away. Would you mind, Orlando? That'd be great.
Well, absolutely, Mark. Look, the first thing that comes to mind is, I'm imagining that your listeners are at different ends of the spectrum. Some that are probably just hearing about NLP and what is that hypnosis thing, and other people that may have done some training or know a bit more about it. Look, the number one skill, I believe, to make any of this and most things that you want to learn useful is get curious. Like, get really curious about how you operate. How does your brain work? How does your mind operate? And I mean, by saying how does it work, I'm absolutely, there's some wonderful work being done neuroscientifically and what have you, in brain scamming, but I'm really talking about the literal day-to-day. If you're having a thought that keeps popping up, what is that thought? Are you talking to yourself? Do you see a scene or a scenario playing out in a movie? If you're feeling a particular feeling, positive or negative, when you become aware of that feeling, take it to the next level and go, well, where is that feeling? Is it in my gut? Is it in my chest? Is it in my head? You know, what if it's something that I want, can I intensify it? If it's a feeling that I'm not enjoying, what happens if I put it down on my left toe, one of my little toes, for a while? Does it make a difference? If you find yourself thinking about a thought that's getting in the way, well, what happens if you just either push it back a bit or you step back from it? You know, if it's something that you're imagining visually, move it to the side. Start playing with, number one, start becoming aware of how you as a human being do being human. How do I think? Not the what are you thinking? Well, that's something you can adjust later if you really want to. But for most of my clients and students, when you start learning how you can take control, the what is not so important. If the analogy would be the moment you're driving, as soon as you learn to drive your own bus well, it doesn't matter if you're on a highway, a dual carriageway, or a road. You have the skills to drive the bus regardless of what the terrain is. And it's absolutely starts with awareness of what is this thing I call thinking. When I ask myself a question and I get an answer, what does that answer sound like? When they're good answers, do they sound different to bad answers? And if you're talking to yourself and discussing the thoughts literally inside your mind or out loud, well, what kind of voice are you using? Is it one that's actually benefiting you, or one not so much? And absolutely, these key skills that I'm talking about: the curiosity, to have the awareness, to start noticing what you're thinking. The moment you start noticing it, you start noticing distinctions, and then you can actually affect change completely on your own. A lot of people can very quickly pick up these skills and go, well, okay, well, whenever I have a thought that upsets me, it's black and white and it's all right up on top of me. If I just put some color in it, put it over there, I don't have to feel so bad anymore. Well, as simple as that is, that can be a remarkable change for some people. And absolutely, the invite's there. If anyone that's interested in the modalities at all, or what I'm talking about now, and that awareness and curiosity, these are topics that come up a lot. And I loop back through them constantly on Thursday night, and I'm practicing them myself. And the reason for that is no matter how aware you become, no matter how efficient or elegant you become with the skills, there's always room for improvement. And then you start talking to someone else and they go, oh yeah, but I did this with mine. You go, hey, now I never thought of that. I might give that a go. And you start learning from each other and just in that conversational realm. So get curious and become aware of how you're doing what you're doing. And answers may start presenting themselves a lot quicker than you thought.
Yeah, that's great advice. Thanks very much for sharing that, everybody. I really appreciate it. And like, that's priceless what you offer there in a Thursday as well. Like, it's really, really good the way you explained there that the way you can kind of practice with other people that are like-minded and get some great tips off each other. It's really, really priceless. So thanks a million for doing that. How many people do you have altogether in the group at the moment now, Orlando?
Each week there's anything from 16 to about 25 would be there. It was my expectation every week, around the 20 mark every week. And that's probably a pool of about 70 people that, depending on which week, some people come. There's no requirement to come along every week. There's no cost to it. You don't have to come every week. Some people jump in for an hour because it runs for 2 hours. Some people come in for the first or the second hour, depending on their calendar, or maybe they've got kids to look after.
That's the problem, the kids, yeah. The kids is the big one for me, yeah.
We've literally got people coming in from Canada, the US, New Zealand, Australia, throughout all different types of areas in Europe. And so your different time zones, sometimes people are a little late and they're sort of rubbing the eyes with a cup of coffee while we're sitting there in the evening. So, I love it. I absolutely love it.
No, like, fair play to you for doing it, and thanks very much for having me on as well. Really, really gained a lot from it, yeah. So do you mind if I ask you one or two favorites that you have? Well, I normally ask guests that come on. So do you have favorite kind of books yourself that you've read, or favorite author, Orlando?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean,
I know Richard Bandler's wrote a lot of great books.
A lot of my reading is very heavily around the topics of NLP and hypnosis. Richard Bandler is actually the co-author on my favorite book. It sort of spoke very deeply to me, as your listeners to probably understand, with my accent being a little different. I started in New Zealand and went through America to the UK, where I now live, have done for 3 years now. And my favorite book is actually one called Conversations, which is written by Owen Fitzpatrick with Richard Bandler.
Great.
Owen wrote it when he was younger, and he would literally travel for a few months and then meet up with Richard and ask questions about where he was at and what he was looking to develop and work on. And he would literally transcribe Richard's conversation with him, and then he goes on his next adventure. And for moving around the world and learning, that spoke very deeply to me. There's another couple of books. One of my favorites is Teaching Excellence, written by Kate Benson, also co-authored with Richard. To me, it's one of the best books that's been written on NLP, not to downgrade the value of anything else, but it's a very recent work from Richard and Kate. I think it was published first 2017, maybe 2018, so it's very recent. So rather than, as Richard would say himself, rather than starting with the book he wrote in 1974 or 75, start where he is now and get the benefit of his 4 decades without having to do it yourself.
Yeah.
It's got a brilliant introduction to what NLP is. There are some, it's got it's an excellent book of strategies, and literally it's the definitive book on teaching, written for teachers by Kate, who has 3 decades of experience at being a teacher herself, becoming a master trainer of NLP, and then teaching teachers how to teach. Not to suck eggs, but it's not about content. It's literally about the mechanics and from an NLP perspective of what you can do to enhance your effectiveness when teaching. I personally did Kate's course a few years ago now as a trainer, because to me, most people at some point in their life are teachers. Parents are teachers. There are primary teachers, for goodness sake. And these skills are absolutely imperative, but literally the book breaks it down to, there is a specific strategy for how to spell. There is a specific strategy for addition, for multiplication, for division. There's for reading, for speed, reading for comprehension. There are different forms of breaking it down into very small detail and saying, do this, get that result. And to me, I absolutely love that. To me, it's a large part of the essence of NLP is being able to replicate behavior by having a roadmap or a plan that actually works, something that's proven. So that's another great book to start with. There is another book, I've actually bought it upstairs because I didn't want to get the dude's name wrong. It's actually called Monsters and Magical Sticks.
Okay.
There were Monsters and Magical Sticks, There's No Such Thing as Hypnosis, written by Stephen Hellier, PhD, and Terry Steele. That book is possibly the best book that I've ever read on the subject of hypnosis. It is written by people that have written from their own experience and the experience of their peers, and they, not for one page, not for one moment do they take themselves seriously. And I just think it's absolutely brilliant that they've got that mix in there of, this is what works, here are some examples, and of course go and prove us wrong. Absolutely pushing the point. It's all in the doing. Go and do it and find out the results. Go and give it a crack, give it a nudge, and see what works for you or doesn't. And the 4th book that I've mentioned has nothing to do with NLP. It's a book called River God by Wilbur Smith. And it's a book that I read in my teens. I've reread it pretty much every decade I've been alive, last 3 decades. And I just found it to be an absolutely beautiful piece of literature, and it came alive inside my mind. And I refer back to it often.
What's the name of the book again? Sorry, I couldn't really hear that, Orlando. What's the name of the book again?
It's called River God.
River God, okay.
By Wilbur Smith.
Okay, yeah.
And it's a novel, but it's based on some, I'll let the listeners look into it if they wish. Okay. But that's probably the book one of the most pleasurable books that I've ever read in my life. Off topic from NLP, but wonderful nonetheless.
Sounds great. Yeah.
Look, and there are some fantastic books out there. There's all the classics from Richard, Structure Magic 1 and 2, Using Your Brain for a Change, Frogs to Princes, Beliefs. There's some excellent work out there by Robert Dilts, Judith DeLoza. Richard himself has authored or co-authored, I think, like 34 or 35 books now. Loads, Thinking on Purpose, he recently released with Owen Fitzpatrick. That's a cookbook, that one. That's a brilliant cookbook for the brain and for the individual. Literally, here are the 15 things here are 15 things in a row. Give them a go and notice what changes in your life.
Great.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic list, Orlando. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
I should have had my page and pen ready, writing them down.
Well, between Amanda and I think we've got about 380 or 420 or something like that books down still and through the house. So yeah,
Good stuff.
Yeah, I feel sorry for people that ask the question because there's a lot of answers.
No, that's brilliant. No, that's brilliant. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's brilliant. No, and what do you do to relax yourself, Orlando? Do you like a certain kind of music yourself? What kind of music do you like?
But my favorite music to relax to is Andrea Bocelli.
Oh, very good.
I could listen to literally a pair of noise cancelling headphones, find a comfy spot, and I'm gone. Talk about altering your state of consciousness. I marvel at how a human being can make that noise. Incredible, it is just amazing. And a lot of the people that he's co-sung with, from Sarah Brightman, just a list of different people. And another thing that I really enjoy doing to relax, and it's surrounded by music. I do love music, and from all forms of genre, most forms of genre. But I love watching things on YouTube. That there's a series called People Are Awesome. I think the 2016 one was, the soundtrack was Levitate by Howder-Kane. But those videos where they're a collection in 4 minutes of people doing absolutely phenomenal things. And I just love being reminded that people are awesome. You know, amazing things happen every day on this planet. And when we begin noticing them, and even in our own environment, and seeing the way, what some people can do. I mean, we've got the Olympics going on at the moment, like people moving across the earth in seconds to win medals. I mean, it's just, I think it's wonderful. I think it's a celebration of humanity. It's very cool.
Yeah, great. Yeah, brilliant. And that's great. Listen, I really appreciate this, Orlando. It's a great interview. I really appreciate it. So maybe just one last thing before you go. If you're talking about, because it's a motivational podcast, so in your opinion, could you kind of give a few words to people, the best way to keep yourself motivated, I suppose, especially through these kind of hard times last year and a half? Could you kind of give a takeaway what your opinion is on that?
Sure. Look, in a nutshell, to me, I think one of the first things to do is just cut yourself some slack. And really put some effort in. For some people, I appreciate this is not so easy for everybody, all right? But start with, even, it doesn't matter how small it is, but notice something that you do well in your day. And the next day, notice 2 things that you've done well in the day. And the next day, 3 things that you've done well that day. And by going up one at a time for a week, by the end of it, by day 7, you'll actually start noticing things during the day that you're doing well. So you've got your list of 7 for the evening.
Wow.
Now, it might seem like such a tiny thing, but look, we've got so much information available to us now, and not all of it's terribly complimentary. A lot of it's quite the opposite, so that we need to buy solutions, buy this product, buy this, whatever it might be. There's a lot of negativity floating around, and there's not so much of just notice what you are doing well first. Start building yourself. This is not about going crazy positive, and you got to wake up every morning going, "Oh, I'm a being of light." That's not my bag at all. But in my experience, and this is with friends, with family, with clients, with students, over and over again, I encounter people that are used to giving themselves a really hard time. And I think there's a huge balance to, well, if it's all right to give yourself a hard time, it's all right to give yourself a bit of kudos as well, to point out what you're doing well. And every moment that you're noticing that you're doing something well is one moment that you take back from this side of the scale. And I think that's really a phenomenally brilliant thing to start doing. And as you know, on Thursday nights, there's every couple of weeks at least, we dive into a subject with a specific skill or strategy that you can do, a tip or a hint. But it really comes back to, number one, be curious about how you're doing what you're doing. And number two, start finding that balance by one thing, then two things, and three things. So each day, just find one more thing that you're doing well. And look, if life's thrown you a real curveball, and some of the clients that I work with, shall we say, if they came to me earlier, it would have been easier for them. But it may be that one thing that you notice on a Monday is that you managed to tie your shoes or dress yourself properly, and the rest of the day may have been bleak, but you still managed to get up and you got dressed. And then the next day it might be, well, I got up and I got dressed and I made myself a lunch that was better than yesterday's. It doesn't have to be about changing the landscape of the entire world with a single wash of one brush. Start with the things that add up so that you can say to yourself, honestly, I did that well. Because if it ain't honest, well, you're not going to believe yourself. So the value's gone. But just build it up one day at a time, one idea at a time, and you'd be surprised at where you can get over time.
That's brilliant motivational voice. Thanks a million, Orlando. We really appreciate it. It's great for all the listeners. Thanks a million. So I can't thank you enough for coming on, Orlando. I really, really appreciate it. And the best of luck in all your future endeavors as well. I'll be seeing you every Thursday night as well. Yeah.
Look, Mark, you're absolutely welcome, as are the listeners, anytime you like. And thank you very much for inviting me on and having a chat this evening.
Yeah. It's great. So you'll be able to see this, everybody, on YouTube as well. From Thursday onwards. What date are we now? This is the 1st of August. So Thursday is I haven't got a calendar beside me, but I'll let you know later on what date. The 5th of August. Yeah, the 5th of August. Thank you, Orlando. So listen, thanks a million, Orlando, for coming on. I really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, Mark. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah. So thanks everybody for listening to Mark's Motivational Podcast and watching on YouTube. So take good care of yourselves, and we'll talk to you soon for another podcast. Take care. Thank you.